Oh yeah, we are back in the Ahsoka verse. I'm here once again with my co-conspirator Shoff. Shoff, how you doing today?
Ooh, I feel like it's time to fly, Vactor. It's time
Yeah,
to fly.
that is the time. The name of this episode, Shoff is quoting part 3 of Ahsoka, Time to Fly. So we thank you very much for joining us once again. If you haven't checked out our previous episode, we talked about parts 1 and 2 last week, and we're going to continue to talk about every episode of Ahsoka as it airs. So, Shoff, let's get right into it. What did you think of part 3, Time to Fly?
I liked it. I liked it. To me, it wasn't as strong as the first two. I also felt that it was it wasn't a filler episode truly, but it was, I don't feel like a ton was accomplished in this episode. Um, yes, there were some spectacle moments here and there, but I felt like it didn't truly further the plot much more than what we already know.
Right.
People were not like truly changed by any of these things. So that's kind of where I'm at. I felt like there's only 8 episodes in this series. Like,
Yes.
I think that it needs to go a little harder than this to accomplish its end goal. So this felt a little less purposeful than the previous ones, but I still appreciated it. There were definitely some really nice moments sprinkled throughout. So definitely looking
Yeah.
forward to talking about them. How about you?
I think I'm right there with you. It's definitely one that I think it's meant to be about Sabine's journey, and it's a lot of meditation, I think, of okay, she might be force sensitive. We don't know that 100% yet. She's starting her training again with Ahsoka, and we still don't know why Ahsoka stopped training her. I think we'll be getting that a little bit later in the series. But like you said, 8 episodes. We don't even know if we're getting a second season of this. We're getting one just it's a very quick 8 episodes, and we got the first 2 right away. But you know what I was also thinking, this might be a very good binge if you have like all 8 episodes out in front of you. I don't think we will have this issue of this is a little bit slow. You know, we're doing it week to week, but if the person who's binging it has, I can just press play and go right to the next episode.
Yeah.
They won't necessarily have that. But I'm right there with you. The dogfight in this episode was fantastic, and Ahsoka flipping on the wing and doing lightsaber battle in space. I don't
Yeah.
think we've ever seen that before. We've seen just on there was actually on Clone Wars there was like a Jedi floating in the upper atmosphere with a lightsaber, but not out in space, not out in orbit. So I think this might be the very first time we've seen that. So when I was watching it, I was like,
Yeah.
this is something I've never seen before. So I was really enjoying that.
I liked that. I didn't necessarily love like her spacesuit
I was gonna say
thing. Like that to me felt, I was like, wow, she's got a personal custom spacesuit.
that.
And
Yeah.
it looks pristine, like she's never used it. It looks like it looks like it is brand spanking new. She just took
Yeah.
like in the scene earlier, she's like taking the plastic off, like she's
Yeah.
cutting the tags. She's like, "Oh, should I wash this first?
Yes.
I'm just gonna wear it. I want to wear my new clothes. Everybody likes to wear their new fit. So but it was fun. There were definitely some mirroring moments with stuff that happens in Rebels. They're running to assume the gunner seat. Like Sabine was taking the gunner
Yes.
seat.
Yes.
Um,
And that's
the
also like just pure Star Wars right there. You think
Yeah.
about Luke, in the Millennium Falcon at the gunner's seat, and there's that music is going, and it felt this
totally.
feels very Star Wars. Where Andor is one of my favorite shows of all time, but Andor doesn't have this type of Star Wars feel to it. There's no lightsabers, there's no force, there's no dogfights. So I think if you're a classic Star Wars fan, this show is actually delivering a lot of the stuff that you would want. not necessarily like I said, Andor was like a different flavor of Star Wars.
Yeah.
This is like
Yeah.
classic. That was new Star
But
Wars. It's classic Star Wars.
yeah, but Andor does have that great moment. I forget Skarsgård's name on the show, but he's flying that ship and he's got all those little tricks, all those little special gadgets, and he uses like it's almost like lightsabers shooting out of either side.
Oh, right, right,
And he
right.
does
Yes,
that cool
yes.
like spin move and takes out the baddies. Like that was
Yes.
fun.
Yes. Luthen.
Luthen, thank you.
Yes.
Yes. I thought the episode starting with the sparring scene was great with Hu Yang.
Yes.
That was
yes.
really fun to kind of see like that side of him, because for those that watched Clone Wars, like they have a lot more invested in this guy. But for those that haven't watched Clone Wars like myself, I'm just starting it. They don't have as much experience with this droid and his I guess connection to not only the Force but also to lightsabers and the history of sabers and combat and things like that. So
Yes.
great to see that. I actually liked their sparring session better than I liked the Ahsoka Sabine sparring session. And this may be an unpopular opinion, but I don't love Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka.
Well,
maybe it's just because she's playing it so flat. Like she's so stoic. She's so deliberate. And I just from what I saw of her on Rebels, what I've seen of her in Clone Wars, I'm like, how is this the same person?
Right.
Like she's so serious.
That's 100% valid. And you're not alone. I've seen that take a lot online. And I have to agree. And we talked about the voice last week of Ashley Eckstein versus Rosario. I'm 50-50 on it. 50% of me is saying, oh, they will explain that there was something traumatic that happened or something. There's a reason why she's being more reserved now. And then the other half of me is like, no, they're never going to explain that. It's just going to act like, all right, this is her live action version. That was her animated version. But it's 100% right. If you've been following the character from the animated shows up until the live action, you can even go back to Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian. She was the same way in those shows. And it's more about her look than anything. And I think when she was first announced and when she showed up, everybody's like, oh, she looks great. Like she looks like Ahsoka. But I think they didn't stop to say, oh, is she Ahsoka? Does she feel like Ahsoka?
Yeah.
And it's just a different, that might be the direction she was told to go with. You know, hey, this version of Ahsoka is more reserved. Hopefully, like I said, we will get something by the end of it. But 3 episodes into it, I'm with you. It just feels like it's a different character than the one we had seen in the previous iterations of the animated shows. But Filoni's at the helm, so it's not like a different guy's coming in and saying, this is my take on it. It's like, this is the original creator of the character. So I will wait to see. I will wait until we have all 8 episodes, and maybe even until Filoni's movie, we might see something where Ahsoka is, maybe it's just her evolution, from the young, precocious character. She was like a ball of energy. If you go back to did you go back to the actual movie, or did you just go straight into the show?
So
the Clone Wars.
In preparation, I was trying to do it legit. Like I was going based off of like the release year of stuff.
Yes.
So I definitely watched that miniseries, the movie first.
Right.
But I feel like that's where I have some questions.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this to you. If we can take a moment just to address this. So correct me if I'm wrong. I know it's probably been a lot longer since you've watched it than when I watched it. But didn't the Clone Wars movie end with events that were basically like leading right into what would be the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, where Palpatine is quote unquote kidnapped and he's been brought onto Grievous's ship, and then Anakin and Obi-Wan are sent to rescue him, right? Like I recall there being footage of like what would be the beginnings of that in that miniseries. But then I'm watching like Clone Wars because I went back to it. I was like, wait a minute. I'm watching like the first maybe 3 or 4 episodes into Clone Wars. I'm like, this is totally backtracked. Like that has not taken place. Grievous is out there with this giant ship that has like an ion cannon or something. I can't remember what it's called. Devastator or I can't remember what
Yes.
the name term is called. But
Yeah.
but I'm like, this doesn't. They don't flow into each other. Like it seemed kind of an abrupt difference, and so I was wondering. I wanted to get your take on that. Like,
I know that what you're talking about. There's something that does lead directly into Revenge of the Sith. It actually might even be the 2D animated Clone Wars, because the 3D animated one was actually meant to be a just a couple episodes of the actual show. And at the time they were like, yeah, we're going to get 100 episodes. So they already knew they were getting seasons of the show. So I'm looking up just the plot on here, and they're saying that it goes with Jabba's little baby and all of that stuff. The Hutt clan, they sign a treaty that allows Republic forces to pass through Jabba's territory. So I think it was just setting up the actual show itself, and I can't remember what specifically was, but I know what you're talking about. There was something that went directly into episode 3, and at the
yeah, I'll
time
have
I
to look
was like
back.
huge into
Maybe I'm
that.
confusing myself on something, but I remember that.
Yeah,
I'm like, what? This seems weird.
right. Yeah,
And maybe I'm on my own here, but this first season has been a little bit hard to get into. I'm not gonna lie. But I think it's also
Clone Wars. Yes,
yeah,
yes,
Clone Wars. I'm
right.
having a little bit of a tough time sort of staying focused on it.
Yes,
It
yes.
just doesn't keep my attention the way Rebels did.
Yeah.
It might have a little bit to do with the sort of jankiness of the CGI of the time.
Yes. That actually
Because
threw
like
me off.
their mouths
And
aren't moving. Like it's like really like bad dubbing in that regard. Not
when I
really. It's
saw
not the
that,
dubbing that's bad. It's the animation to go
right.
alongside
Yeah,
the
it
VO
was
that's
just the
not really great.
technology at the time. There's been so much progress in animation since 2008, but I was the same way. I did not like the look of it at first, and the first season was kind of a slog for me. I didn't fall in love with, and I didn't tell you this. I forgot when you told me you were going to go back and watch Clone Wars, but I didn't fall in love with it until season 2. That's when I
Okay.
got hooked on Clone Wars, and from there I was like, yes, this is great. But it is rewarding to continue with it, and that final season is just fantastic. I love the last season of Clone Wars, but you get to see her progression. Like I said, in that original movie, which was the first time we saw her, she was created and debuted in that movie. She was like a ball of energy, and we saw her like that for a lot of the show. And she was kind of like the Robin to Anakin's Batman, and she was the light, the not comic relief, but just the light, the sunshine in the room. And this version of her is not like that. I'm not seeing that in this show so far. And like I said, actually everything in the live action stuff, because if you think about it, in Mandalorian, she shows up, captures Morgan Elsbeth, and then is training with Grogu and Luke, like talking to Luke and guiding him. But that's about it. And in this show so far, she hasn't really been given a lot to do. She's had a couple lightsaber fights, but everything is about, it's like fetch quests. It's like, all right, we got to go track the map. All right, the map goes over here,
Yeah.
and then now we got to
Yeah.
fly to this planet, and that planet goes over there. So at, at this point, we're 3 episodes in. It does feel like I want her to have more to do, and I want her to have a more significant impact. And like you said, we haven't gotten rolling yet, really. It's like we know we've got these little threads of, okay, we've got the Dark Jedis, we've got the former Jedis and Morgan Elsbeth, we got that Thrawn storyline, we've got the Ahsoka training Sabine storyline, we got Sabine coming into her own and kind of finding out who she is, and then we got finding Ezra story. So we got all these little storylines, but everything hasn't really come together and gelled at this moment. It's just a lot of setup and I saw a lot of people talking about the way the dialogue is delivered in these episodes, it's like very stilted, and they take these pauses of it's almost like they want it to have this impact, like, what I'm saying
Yeah. What
is
I'm saying is
very
so
important.
important. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping yeah, I'm hoping it picks up a little bit, but I'm still it's hard for me to be down on it because I'm in the Star Wars universe, and I just
Sure.
love spending time in this universe, and I I'm also kind of anticipating what's gonna come, and so that's, like, fueling me at this point. I think Secret Invasion was kinda like that as well, where I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm in the Marvel universe, I got Samuel L. Jackson," and then when I got to the end, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, there all that stuff I was anticipating didn't end up happening," so hopefully Ahsoka is not like that, but, I'm really excited that you're getting into the Star Wars universe even more so than you were before. And I'm very curious. Remember, we talked about Merrick last week about
Yeah.
who it possibly could be. Was there any more hints in this episode to you of who you think Merrick might be revealed as?
Well, hearing the voice does not sound female. I mean, it's definitely digitized, right? It's affected, whether that's just like a mask thing, kind of like a stormtrooper mask or a Darth Vader mask or something like. Um, but it feels like it's a guy underneath there based on the sound of the voice. Um, and with that Sam Witwer voice credit, not tied to him specifically, at least I don't think it was. I didn't look at the credits for this episode to see if it was like Merrick and then like it had a person's name next to it.
Yeah, they did have somebody's name. I can't remember who it was, but it was not, anybody that we know.
Right, right. And that could have just been the body, right? Like
Yeah,
who's in the costume.
right,
But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the person for
right.
reals, especially when they take off the
Because
mask.
yeah, I mean, look at Pedro Pascal and the Mandalorian.
Yeah,
Like they're crediting the body doubles now.
exactly. So it feels more and more like it could very well be the canon version of Starkiller if they're going to go down that road. It could very well just be a new character named Merrick.
Mm.
Like it doesn't have to be anybody. That I think we all want it to be somebody because we want the mask to mean something. But he could very well just be another Inquisitor. I think we've heard rumblings about Hayden Christensen being involved again for this series or this show, maybe in a flashback concept. Obviously, Darth Vader is at the time of this stuff is gone. So
Right.
um the assumption is that this is all flashback stuff unless there's some clone element going on here. Maybe he'll pull off the mask and it's Anakin, but it's like he's like a clone Anakin. Like that would be fun. I don't know. I just don't think, even though I would really like it to be Barris. Is it off?
Offie. Yeah.
Offie? Yeah. Even though I'd like it to be her, it doesn't sound like it's going to be her.
I I just there's this thing in the back of my mind of remember Taskmaster in Black Widow? They had a male person in the suit the whole
Yeah.
time, and then all right, it's a female. It's not it's a woman the whole time. And they had disguised the voice. Like I just feel like at this point they're disguising the voice and they're wearing a mask when they don't need to. There's specific times where it's like unless they were injured or unless they need that mask to survive like Vader, they should have taken the mask off in the time in canon, basically in the universe. There should have been times where they were taking the mask off, but for us as the audience members, they're hiding for a reason. I feel like they're building up to all right, this is going to be this big reveal. And I'm still seeing the Ezra talk. I'm still seeing the only way I could see that is like if they do something with time travel and it's like, all right, this is Ezra from the future, he comes back, or this is like Ezra's time. He had spent so much time there that he develops this darker personality or this dark side, because we saw that in Rebels. He was working with Maul, and he was going towards the dark side. He was using, the Sith holocron. So it's not like he doesn't have dark moments in Rebels, but man, I feel like that number one, it'd be too obvious. I feel like it would be too cheap, and like the cheap scare of, oh, it's him, it's Ezra. This is who we were searching for the whole time, and he was Merrick. But I don't feel like Merrick is a big enough character at this point. I feel like he would be the big bad if it was
Hmm.
Ezra. Like he would be the Kylo Ren, or he would be like the Snoke, or somebody like the head person, and not the mercenaries, underlings, like the he's below, or he or she is below everybody as far as rank, I feel like. But it'll be interesting to see who it is when they finally reveal it. But I'm enjoying Merrick so far.
I'll tell you this:
So
Merrick, Shin, Hati, and all the other nondescript aliens that are assisting them. Terrible shots,
oh
terrible,
yeah.
terrible aim in space. To be that close and not have destroyed that ship at that, like, come on, like that's wild to me. But
Yeah.
okay, plot armor is a thing.
Yeah.
I loved seeing. I can't remember the actress's name. I don't have it up in front of me, but the actress who plays Mon Mothma.
Oh yes,
Or
yes.
I should say Chancellor Mothma in this
Mm,
episode.
yes.
Great to see her again. I
Yes.
think she's
Gene-
fantastic. She was
Genevieve
awesome in
O'Reilly.
Andor. What's that?
Yes. Genevieve O'Reilly.
There you go, Genevieve O'Reilly.
Yeah.
We also get our first live action appearance of Jason Syndulla,
Ooh, yes.
which is really cool. Carrying over from Rebels, he's got green hair. Hair doesn't look exactly the same, but he does have green hair. And I don't know if you caught this, and I didn't catch this on my first viewing, but I saw it on TikTok, so I thought I would share it because TikTok is where you get all the latest and greatest scoops of stuff. He's wearing a scaled down pauldron on his shoulder, like a shoulder plate. That is the same shoulder plate that Kanan wore in Rebels.
Ooh,
It's not as large.
nice.
Kanan's was like very oversized, but it's the same design on it, same
Nice.
look, same shape. So I thought that was a nice
I
nod.
like that. Yeah.
We got Purrgils.
Yes. Yes.
Live action Purrgils. How did they? So based on what we've seen in Rebels, now seeing them live action, did it hold up for you? Was it a worthy reveal, or do you think they should have saved the Purrgils for a later episode?
No, I think this is good. The amount that they revealed, in Mando, we only saw them as they were traveling through hyperspace, and we saw them on the sides. This one,
Right.
we're getting like a full close up view. So I liked this version. I like the design that they chose, and they went with. Everything looked great to me. I also thought it was interesting, Sabine saying, "I haven't seen them since Ezra," and it almost feel like she didn't know about, like, Hu Yang was the one who said their names. Like, she was just like, these creatures. I thought it was just known, in the Star Wars universe, that, oh, Purrgil exists. They were ancient light speed travelers, hyperspace travelers.
Right.
But it seems like it's not very well known. Maybe only the Jedi and Sith were privy to it. I don't know, but I just thought that
What's
was kind of
crazy to
interesting.
me is that it seems like there wasn't a very clear report of what happened when Thrawn and Ezra disappeared. Like,
Right.
in terms of what the Rebels team shared with the rest of the Rebel Alliance, like, and everything else, there's so little known about that. And it just tells me that they didn't really share everything. I don't know why, but they kept a lot
Yeah.
of secrets. So much so that Hera thought that Thrawn was dead. Like, what?
Right.
Why
Right.
would you think that? You saw them all go fly away together. Like, at no point was Thrawn dead. And if you think that about Thrawn, then why don't you think that about Ezra too? And apparently, based on that council scene with Chancellor Mothma, we see that at least multiple times, not at least spoken of, Hera has been using Republic resources to try to find Ezra. So, which is good. I'm glad they haven't forgotten about him, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great scene, and seeing Genevieve O'Reilly, I was like, "Oh, I didn't know we were gonna see her," and
Yeah.
the fact that she's played Mon Mothma in multiple series, in Rogue One, like, is kinda fantastic. I think she was even in episode 3, if I'm not mistaken, but
I think that was her
she's had
first
a
appearance. Yeah.
yeah, she's had such a long history with this character, and it's cool to see an actor flesh out a character after so many years. Like, in episode 3, she was barely in it, and then how many years went by until we saw her again in Andor. So I think that's really cool that it was like this character was there the whole time, but now we're getting a chance to really get a feel for who she is and her politics and everything. So I'm really liking the expansion of Mon Mothma's character, and we're still
She's aged
getting
like a
these.
fine wine, like a
Oh yeah,
fine wine,
yeah.
the
She
finest
yeah
of wine.
she looks like she did in episode 3 to me. Like
I know.
I
She's just
don't
been
see
like
any
sleep
difference.
Tupperware or something. I don't know.
um, we got another mention of Thrawn. Thrawn. Somebody needs to put a super cut of Thrawn mentions. Do you think we're gonna see him before the end of the series, or do you think they're gonna save the bulk, the meat of Thrawn for the movie, this Filoni movie that's coming up?
Good question. I think you're right. I think that he will be established as a threat, but I don't think he's going to be whatever threat he creates is not going to be solved by the end of this season. Um, but I think we talked about this. Filoni is not going to be directing another episode until the 5th episode,
Yes.
and that's the longer episode. I think that one is like 50 something plus minutes. It's like it's the
Ooh.
longest of the season. So, um, that one, if it were up to me and these were my characters that I created, or not, maybe he didn't create Thrawn, but he purposed Thrawn,
Mhm.
right?
Right. Right.
But he did make Ezra and all these other, like, if you're going to introduce those characters again in Ahsoka, you're gonna want to be the one in creative control of that. So I fully believe that that's the episode we're gonna see potentially both of those characters, Ezra and
Mm.
Thrawn.
Nice, okay, and that would be
Um,
like a nice midway point because episode 5, we've got 3 episodes left after that.
yeah,
So, yeah, that would be a good, nice midway point, Shaw. If I'm with you, I wanna see him in
yeah. I don't think
episode
he would
5.
give that privilege to anybody else. I think he wants. I mean, I would want it personally. I would be like, no, you're not having that. That's my moment.
Right.
Yeah, these are my people. So
Yes. So I think me and we've aligned once again, Shaw. I think our feelings are this was, an okay filler episode. I really liked the dogfight in space, the ship battles, and then Ahsoka jumping, using her lightsabers out on the wing. Those were cool, but there wasn't a whole lot of plot, pushing forward what was going on. It was just kind of, oh, these are cool moments, but not a whole lot. Basically, we found out that Morgan Elsbeth is building a giant hyperspace ring, and I was wondering, did it have to be so big? First, I was thinking, oh, did they want to put like a little planet in there? But I was like, nah, it's not big enough. But then, oh, maybe they want the Purrgil to go in there. Like, what was the point of it being that big? You know, because normally it's to get a ship
do you
a
think?
very
Well,
far
I
distance.
assumed it was that big because that's the size of the Star Destroyer that they flew away on.
The Thrawn, when the one that Thrawn was on.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah,
unless
I
that's
was
not.
thinking about that.
I mean, that's my only guess, or it's because of the size of a Purrgil.
Hmm.
Because they
That was
mentioned that even that hyperspace thing, I think they still need Purrgils to get there. So I think
yeah.
that's why they built it over Cetos, which is where a bunch of Purrgils are in the atmosphere. So
Mm.
it seemed to me like the Purrgils are needed regardless to get to this other space. So, but that doesn't make any sense to me as to why they would need the hyperspace drive as
Right.
well.
Right. Because it
Because
like
if Purrgils were able to take Ezra and Thrawn just by attaching themselves to the ship, then it wouldn't really matter, right? Like you would need to
yeah.
make a big thing.
I'm thinking it's kind of like not a holster, but like a saddle for the Purrgil of like keeping them, and then I can guide them to go where I want them. That's the only thing I can think of.
Maybe.
But yeah, and as far as the Ezra thing, why would he be back, but Thrawn stayed
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, no, that
And
doesn't.
if he's turned, like I've seen these theories, okay, now he's turned to the dark side, or he's turned and he's joined Thrawn. Why would he leave Thrawn back there if he turned or if he joined his side? So yeah, that I still don't buy the Ezra thing. If it turns out to be true, then hey, I want to see what Filoni has to say of why it's true. But at this point, to me, it doesn't make sense.
My only other
Excellent.
thought is if they're going to make it Ezra, then if we're dealing with time and space, there's no reason why there couldn't be more than one Ezra running around. So like if this is like a dark Ezra, then it could be an Ezra from the future.
Yes.
And then they're like, I guess their only hope is that they could, if they get to the world between worlds or something, they can, retrieve an Ezra before this turn, this dark turn. I don't know. But like if they're going to go down that path, like to me, it seems like they're going to need to use time as a means to make it happen. So.
Right. The multiverse is all in vogue right now, Shaw. Everybody wants to get a multiverse. So that I could definitely see that happening. Nega Ezra. Nega Scott. I could see that happening.
They watch they become best friends.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that was a good discussion, Shaw. I'm very happy that, like I said, that you're here with me, that you're joining us each and every week talking about Ahsoka. Next week's episode, I noticed the only information that I specifically found is that Peter Ramsey is directing it. He directed an episode of Mando previously, but also Into the Spider-Verse. He was one of the credited directors on Into the Spider-Verse. So I am very much interested to see what he has to say. But every episode, it looks like is being written by Filoni from start to finish. So there's no other chefs in the kitchen. Everybody, it's all a Filoni production at this point. So we shall see, my friends. But like I said, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be back next week talking about another episode of Ahsoka Part 4. Please join us. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below here on YouTube. And we will see you in the world between worlds.
Yeah.